Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India confronts terror-sponsoring states at major global security forum. Demand for justice grows as Pakistan silences voices in occupied territories. And NIA probe confirms Lashkar network behind Pahalgam terror attack. In a powerful and uncompromising speech at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Ministers meet in China, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh exposed the hypocrisy of nations that harbour terrorists while pretending to champion regional peace. Without naming names, Singh's pointed criticism was unmistakably aimed at Pakistan, a country long accused of using cross-border terrorism as a strategic tool. The remarks come in the wake of the gruesome April 22nd terror attack in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir, which bore the hallmark of Pakistan-based terror outfit Lashkar-e-Taiba. Here's the full report. India has always been vocal about its uncompromising stance on terrorism, and it did so recently too at a major global platform. During the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Ministers meeting hosted by China, India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made a scathing attack on countries that use cross-border terrorism as a tool of state policy. He pointed to the horrific Pahalgam terror attack of April 22nd, where 26 civilians were brutally killed, as yet another example of terrorism exported into India by Pakistan-backed groups. The attack, carried out by the Resistance Front, a Lashkar-e-Taiba proxy, was a targeted massacre based on religious identity.
Those who sponsor, nurture and utilize terrorism for their narrow and selfish ends must bear the consequences. Some countries use cross-border terrorism as an instrument of policy and provide shelter to terrorists. There should be no place for such double standards. Yes, you should not hesitate to criticize such nations.
Though Singh refrained from naming Pakistan, the message was unmistakable. He revealed that the pattern of the Pahalgam terror attack mirrors past assaults orchestrated by Lashkar-e-Taiba, an outfit proscribed by the United Nations yet allowed to flourish in Pakistan. In response to this barbaric act, India launched Operation Sindoor on May 7th, a preemptive military action aimed at dismantling cross-border terror launchpads in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
On 22nd April 2025, the terror group, the Resistance Front, carried out a dastardly and a heinous attack on the innocent tourists in Pahalgam, in the Indian state of the Jammu and Kashmir. 26 innocent civilians, including a Nepali national, were killed. Victims were shot after they were profiled based on their religious identity. The Resistance Front, which is a proxy of UN-designated terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba, claimed responsibility for the attack. The pattern of the Pahalgam terror attack matches with LET's previous terror attacks in India. In exercising its right to defend against terrorism and preempt as well as deter further cross-border terrorist attacks, India on 7th May 2025 successfully launched Operation Sindoor to dismantle cross-border terrorist infrastructure.
Singh's strong statement was not only a diplomatic warning, it was a call to action for the entire SEO bloc. He reminded member states that terrorism in any form is unjustifiable and that silence or selective condemnation only embolden those who use violence as a political weapon. India urged the SCO to abandon double standards and hold terror sponsors accountable. Despite international designations, Pakistan continues to shield terror proxies like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, using them as tools to destabilize the region. Singh's remarks were aimed at pushing the SCO to confront this uncomfortable truth, especially with Pakistan seated at the same table.
We reiterate the need to hold the perpetrators, organizers, financiers, and sponsors of reprehensible acts of terrorism, including cross-border terrorism, accountable and bring them to justice.
With defense ministers from India, China, Russia, Pakistan, and Central Asian countries attending the summit under China's chairmanship, Singh's statement stood out for its clarity and conviction. India made it abundantly clear that peace in the region cannot be achieved unless terrorism and those who fund and shelter it are eliminated from the equation. India's strong stand at the SCO is part of a broader diplomatic and military campaign to isolate and expose terror-sponsoring regimes. Through operations like Sindoor and global platforms like the SCO, New Delhi is reshaping the narrative from one of victimhood to strategic retaliation. And for the international community, the message is unambiguous. Terrorism knows no borders, and those who enable it must face the consequences. Once again, Pakistan finds itself in the international spotlight, and not for the reasons it desires. The so-called protector of Kashmiri rights is now being exposed as the real oppressor of those very people. At the 59th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, a powerful protest led by the United Kashmir People's National Party revealed the gruesome truth of Pakistan's colonial brutality in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. From extrajudicial killings and arbitrary arrests to media blackouts and the suppression of political voices, the protests tore apart Islamabad's holoclaves.
On June 24th, in front of the UN Human Rights Council building in Geneva, members of the United Kashmir People's National Party stood with posters, placards, and an unwavering demand: justice for Jarnosh and Jibran Naseem, two Kashmiri brothers murdered in cold blood. Jarnosh and Jibran Naseem were murdered by Pakistani forces in Rawalkot, their only crime resisting injustice. Despite public outcry, no FIR has been registered, no inquiry ordered, no media allowed to report. A state-sponsored cover-up is underway and the world has taken note. The protest called for an independent fact-finding mission and an international judicial commission to investigate this extrajudicial killing, a case which Pakistan has tried to bury under silence and media blackouts.
हमने ये ज़रूरी जाना कि एक ऐसी फैमिली जिसके बच्चों को दिन दिहाड़े जो है वो कत्ल कर दिया गया है और उनके ख़िलाफ़ पाकिस्तान ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर के किसी भी थाने में कोई FIR रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है, किसी कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ से उनको जो है वो इश्तिहारी नहीं करार दिया गया है। इसके बावजूद पुलिस ने एक झूठी कहानी, और झूठी कहानी ये थी कि जिस वक्त वज़ीर अमूर कश्मीर ने कश्मीरी कौम के लिए एब्यूजिव लैंग्वेज रखी, तो जरनोश जो एक कश्मीरी नौजवान था, स्टूडेंट था, उसने उनके एक जलसा में उनकी तरफ जूता उछाल दिया। तो न सिर्फ उसे बल्कि उसके भाई को भी कत्ल कर दिया। तो ये जुल्म और ज़्यादती जो है हमारे उस एरिया के अंदर ऐसी हो रही है कि जिसके लिए हम समझते हैं कि आवाज़ बुलंद करना ये बहुत ज़रूरी है।
But this isn't a one-off. The killing of Zarnosh and Gibran is part of a larger pattern of state terror orchestrated by Pakistan. In its statement, UK PNP detailed a grim reality: arbitrary detentions, torture, media gag orders, enforced disappearances, and a total collapse of civil liberties in POJK and POGP. These occupied territories have been turned into open-air prisons where asking for basic rights is treated as sedition and peaceful activism is crushed with brute force. Families of victims are not only denied justice, they are denied the right to even speak.
Unfortunately, Pakistan is not ready to listen to the voice of progressive, secular, human rights defenders, political activists, and this is alarming situation people are facing in Pakistani occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. We have raised that we have no freedom of expression, and during recent crisis between India and Pakistan, extremist forces are roaming freely, and state is not ready to curb on these extremist groups, and they are glorifying this issue, this crisis, and they say that we won this war, and people living on the line of control, they are suffered, their houses are damaged, destroyed, and they are displaced. And we demand Pakistan should reconstruct their houses, give them financial assistance, and their rehabilitation must be done immediately.
Even as Pakistan lectures the world on human rights, it refuses to act against extremists within its borders. Instead, it uses brute force to crush peaceful ethnic movements in POJK, Gilgit-Baltistan, Balochistan, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. While the world condemns terror, Islamabad continues to harbor it at the cost of its own people. In both Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, political activists and secular leaders who speak out for their rights are branded traitors, arrested, and tortured. Dozens are jailed under false charges. Their only demand: ownership of local resources and basic human dignity. The UKPNP has urged the UNHRC to immediately send a fact-finding mission to Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. They have demanded a judicial commission with international oversight to investigate the extrajudicial killings of Zarnosh and Gibran. While Islamabad speaks of Kashmiri freedom, it jails Kashmiris who demand it. The time for global silence is over. The truth is out. And it's time the world held Pakistan accountable, not just for what it says, but for what it does.
Pakistan today is facing the wrath of its own creation. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP, a Frankenstein that Islamabad once nurtured, has now become its worst internal enemy. In its pursuit of so-called strategic depth in Afghanistan, Pakistan backed and empowered extremist factions for decades. But today, that very policy has come back to haunt it. The TTP, once sheltered by Pakistan, is now executing deadly attacks inside its cities, security bases, and tribal belts. We decode how Pakistan created the monster that now threatens to devour its own state structure.
It is a cruel irony that for 20 years Pakistan aided the Taliban in their fight against the West, only to now find itself in their crosshairs. It gave them shelter in tribal areas, funded them, and helped them return to power in Kabul in 2021. But now, the same ideology that Pakistan backed is turning on it with full force. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP, born out of Pakistan's own tribal regions, has declared a jihad on the Pakistani state. And it is not just operating from the shadows, it is operating from within.
The TTP is not just a security challenge, it is a strategic indictment of decades of double games and denial. Every time Pakistan has tried to use terrorists for its tactical foreign policy goals, terror has come back stronger to bite them. Pakistan hasn't learned that terrorism is not a tap. You can't turn it on and off.
The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan was formed in December 2007 as a unified militant front following the Pakistan Army's brutal siege of Lal Masjid in Islamabad earlier that year. The crackdown had killed dozens of students, most of whom hailed from the tribal belt. In retaliation, several militant factions came together to form the TTP with the stated aim of waging jihad against the Pakistani state and enforcing Sharia law. The formation of the TTP was not just a spontaneous reaction, it was the inevitable fallout of years of Pakistan Army's sponsorship of extremism in the tribal areas. The same tribal networks that had been used by Pakistan to support the Afghan Taliban were now coalescing into a domestic insurgency. Pakistan had quite literally laid the foundation for its own internal rebellion.
The Afghan Taliban and the TTP are ideological twins. They share a common ideology and tribal ties. They share a common religious doctrine. To the Taliban in Kabul, the TTP is not a terror group. It's a fellow jihadist movement. What Pakistan did not seem to have factored in is that after the US invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, when the Taliban were on the run, it were the tribal elements of FATA that had sheltered them, with the blessings and encouragement of the Pakistan Army. The group not only provided shelter to the Taliban in Pakistan's tribal areas, but also fought alongside them against the US and NATO forces. They had provided valuable logistical and operational support, including suicide bombers. Today, those tribal elements are grouped as the TTP. Under Pashtunwali, the Pashtun Code of Honor, the Afghan Taliban have an obligation to provide the TTP shelter in Afghanistan to return the favor.
In 2014, Pakistan tried to crush the TTP after the world-shocking Peshawar school massacre, where 132 children were gunned down. Operation Zarb-e-Azb drove them out, but it did not destroy them. Today, a decade later, the TTP is back, more organized, better armed, and far more deadly. In 2024 alone, over 450 terrorist attacks rocked Pakistan, killing nearly 40 security personnel each month.
Now, 10 years on, the TTP is back, stronger, more defined, and better armed. It is wreaking havoc across the country, primarily targeting Pakistan's security forces. There are no signs of abatement. And it is not operating from caves or hiding in remote hills in the tribal areas. It is striking in mainland Pakistan and Pakistan's cities.
The Afghan Taliban, once sheltered by Pakistan's tribal allies, have now returned the favor. Hundreds of TTP fighters were released from Afghan prisons after the Taliban takeover in 2021. The group now enjoys safe havens in Afghanistan, modern American weapons left behind by US forces, and tribal loyalties that the Pakistani state cannot penetrate.
Key factor has been the Taliban return to power in Kabul in August 2021. Pakistan believed it had gained strategic depth, that the Afghan Taliban would now crack down on the TTP. That didn't happen. Pakistan's great strategic gamble backfired. The opposite happened. The Afghan Taliban declined to contain, disarm, or act against the TTP. Hundreds of TTP fighters were released from Afghan prisons. The TTP found new sanctuaries across the border in Afghanistan. The Taliban provided tacit support and armed the TTP.
Since 2020, over 30 radical groups have merged with the TTP. It has expanded beyond its original base in Waziristan into Balochistan, Punjab, and Gilgit-Baltistan. By aligning with various militant groups, the TTP is now expanding its ideological reach, attacking military outposts, police units, and even targeting Chinese interests inside Pakistan. In 2022, Pakistan, desperate and cornered, even initiated talks with the TTP. The mediator, the Afghan Taliban. The result, prisoners were released, commanders returned, and a ceasefire was announced, only to collapse within months. The TTP's demands were outrageous: Sharia rule, reversal of Fatah's merger, and withdrawal of army troops from the tribal belt. From being the manipulator of terror networks, Pakistan now finds itself manipulated, with rising internal chaos, political disunity, and an army out of ideas.
A major breakthrough in the National Investigation Agency's probe has confirmed that the 3 terrorists behind the April 22nd Pahalgam massacre were Pakistani nationals, affiliated with the Lashkar-e-Taiba, a globally proscribed terror group nurtured and protected by Islamabad. The investigation, which began in early May, has not only exposed the identities of the killers, but also reaffirmed what India has long maintained: Pakistan continues to export terrorism into Jammu and Kashmir with impunity. We have a report.
The NIA investigation launched in May has brought to light new and damning evidence. 2 Kashmiri locals, Parvez Ahmed Jothar and Bashir Ahmed Jothar, were arrested for knowingly sheltering the 3 foreign terrorists ahead of the April 22nd attack in Pahalgam's Besaran Valley, often called Mini Switzerland. The 2 men revealed during interrogation that the attackers were Pakistani nationals, trained and armed by Lashkar-e-Taiba. They provided food, shelter and logistics, all for an act that left 26 innocent people dead. The terrorists asked victims about their religion before shooting them at point-blank range.
The money comes from Pakistan, whether it comes through Hawala channels, whether it comes through other channels, whatever channels, and that too has been exposed by NIA. And this money was going into to the overground and underground workers to provide support, whether it was logistics support, whether it was moral support, whether it was accommodation, whatever it is. And this is how now, when the NIA has done this investigation, it has again come to fore that these underground, overground workers are the ones who are providing these terrorists the support over there. Now, this is what is being tackled now by the Indian government, and everyone is aware, whether it is in the intelligence circles or in otherwise also, that this nexus has to be broken. Underground, overground workers nexus has to be broken to ensure that terrorism is wiped out from Kashmir Valley.
The men arrested, Parvez Ahmed Jothar and Bashir Ahmed Jothar, reportedly gave food and logistical support to the armed terrorists at a seasonal hut in Hill Park, Pahalgam, just 2 days before the attack. When confronted with photographs retrieved from the phone of a previously killed terrorist, the duo identified the same 3 men who had visited them before the strike. Witnesses and circumstantial evidence have also confirmed their presence at the crime scene. The NIA's massive manhunt involved questioning over 200 people, including pony operators and shopkeepers. It was through this meticulous groundwork that they tracked the attackers' movement and their temporary hideout. The terrorists paid off the locals after taking food and threatened them into silence. The Pahalgam massacre is the latest in a long chain of attacks backed by Pakistan's military intelligence establishment. From the 1993 Bombay blast to the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, from Pulwama to Pahalgam, the pattern is unmistakable, the sponsor unchanged: Pakistan. Each time Pakistan denies, each time India buries its dead, and the cycle continues.
India has always been exposing Pakistan's hand, whether it is the Bombay blast or it was the 26/11 Mumbai hotel, Taj hotel attacks, or it was even otherwise any other, even the Pathankot attacks that were there. NIA has and India has always been exposing Pakistan's involvement in this, including involvement with other terror activities that were being carried out in Kashmir. The problem is that Pakistan has always denied it, and Pakistan always says that these are non-state actors, whereas we have now very well seen that after Operation Sindhur, when the funeral procession of all these proscribed terrorists was being done, senior army officers and politicians were in that namaz, what they say is the namaz-e-janaza, and that was being led by the brother of Hafiz Saeed, who himself is a proscribed terrorist. So this shows that the terror nexus that is there is state sponsored, and there is no doubt about it now.
Despite being banned by the UN and FATF, Lashkar-e-Taiba continues to thrive in Pakistan with the full knowledge and blessing of the state. Terror masterminds like Hafiz Saeed openly address rallies, raise funds, and train new jihadis in camps operating in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and Punjab. Far from cracking down, the Pakistani state offers them cover, weapons, and safe passage across the border.
There is no doubt about it that Pakistan is using terrorism as a tool to, it is rather a state-sponsored terrorism that it is being conducted by them. The state is involved in it because you see ISI, which is the arm of the intelligence arm of the Pakistani army, that is very much involved. All the training camps that are being run by the Pakistan Army and the ISI, whether when it is a question of infiltration or even cultivating the underground, overground workers, this is also the job of the ISI. So this is a big involvement of the state-sponsored terrorism into India.
The Pahalgam carnage drew a sharp military response from India under Operation Sindhur, launched days after the attack. Indian forces targeted specific terror launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and inside Pakistan, dealing a significant blow to the infrastructure of jihad. Pakistan retaliated with drone and missile attacks along the LOC, but most were neutralized by India's advanced air defense systems. Despite being taken off the FATF grey list in 2022, Pakistan has done little to dismantle its terror infrastructure. If anything, its terror proxies have grown more emboldened, while its economy continues to spiral and its global credibility remains in tatters. But no economic crisis has stopped Pakistan from diverting funds to its terror machinery. From the pulpit to the payroll, jihad remains a national obsession.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.